Hello. Well, as you can see on my YouTube channel, I've got quite a lot of videos already, and it's time to find them a new home, for them to be not just hosted on YouTube, but for them to have a separate website. And it's actually going to be super Rails, as you can guess. And now we're going to build it step by step, feature by feature. So we're going to kind of do a lazy code alone, where I will just be building the website and trying to show you how I'm doing it. It's all going to be with Ruby on Rails. And if you wish, you can follow along and see how I implement different features that work all together. Now, the problem with different video tutorials on how to introduce some kind of Ruby on Rails feature is that they usually work as just like how to introduce this feature into an empty application. And the real challenge can be in making a lot of different features work well all together. So that's, I think, the value that tutorials on code alongs on building a full application bring. You see how a lot of different features are introduced into one application and you see how they work together. So I think we can get started. Now, at the moment, I've got just this YouTube channel and I've got a development environment, and we're going to start with a new Ruby on Rails application. So you see, I've got Rails 6.5.3.2 installed. At the moment, it is the latest version, and I've got Ruby 3.0.1 installed. So let's create a new Ruby on Rails application. Now I can just type Rails new, super Rails, and it would create an application. But we can add some kind of customizations. And did you know that there is a nice website named railsnew.io, where you can configure different cool customizations for your Ruby on Rails new application. So for example, you add your name, super Rails, and you can add a lot of stuff or remove a lot of stuff by default. So for example, you can say this and it will be by default API only, or without all the additional Rails framework features, like without action mailbox, action text, active storage, and so on. So like a really lean Ruby on Rails application. You can say that you want to use PostgreSQL and so on by default. So a lot of cool features that you can add or remove from your starting Ruby on Rails application. But now we're just going to say Rails new, super Rails, and we're just going to say that the database is going to be PostgreSQL. So let's create our new Ruby on Rails application. And yeah, as of Rails 6, creating a new application takes more time because we also have Yarn and Webpacker to add. Creating Rails 5 applications always was faster. So you see, we're adding the Yarn packages at the moment. Yeah. And in the meantime, we can also create a GitHub repository. Now the application has been created. Let's navigate to the application, cd super Rails, and try to start. Try to start the server. We'll say Rails S to start the server. I will preview. Now you see that the development environment that I'm using is Cloud9. And it requires config hosts. Now, I don't have to say this specific URL. I will just go to my development environment. So going to super Rails, config, environments, development RB. And here I will say config hosts equals nil. So it will allow all the hosts. Now I will restart the server once again, and it should work. So yeah. You're on Rails. Okay, we've started our first Ruby on Rails application, and now I'm going to actually save our changes. So git init, git status, git add all, git commit main, initialize app. Okay, and if we type git remote v, we see that we don't have anything connected. So yes, let's create a new GitHub repository. Okay, I'm going to create a new repository. I'll name it super Rails. It's going to be public, and we create it. Okay, now we'll say git remote add origin. Now I've already got SSH for GitHub configured, git branch main, and git push u origin main. Okay, let's see. So great, we've pushed our repository to GitHub. Now let's do what? So we've pushed the repository to GitHub, and now let's create something like a hello world page. So we're going to create a new controller, Rails generate controller. Now we'll not name it home controller or dashboard controller. I like the naming of like static public and static private. So like public pages, static public pages, and static private pages. So we will name our controller static public. And we're going to have a few pages. We'll have a landing page. And we can also have a page as like privacy and a page for terms. So it's really common for a Ruby on Rails application to have, well, for any modern website to have a privacy page and a terms of service page. So we can create this, but if we do it, we will also generate a few files that we don't need. Let's try. So you see, we've also generated the tests, we've generated the helpers, and the static public as CSS, and we don't need all these things. That's why some people say that there is too much magic in Ruby on Rails generators. So I'm going to undo all these changes, git clean ft, git reset hard, git status. So I've done all these generation changes I've just done, and we're actually going to run the same command, but with some additional lines to not generate the stuff that we don't need. So I'm going to actually find a tip here. Here I have a small article about writing skinny generators. So we're going to say no helpers, no assets, no controller specs, no view specs, and no text framework. We don't need them for this use case at the moment. So they're just going to generate a few files instead of a lot of files, just the roots, controller, and the views. Okay, and let's start our server and have a look. So we can navigate to our roots. Let's go to our roots, and we see we have a few roots: static public, static landing page, privacy path, and terms path. So we can go to something like static public / landing page and have a look. And you see we have our landing page. In static public landing page, we have our privacy. So kind of works. But we want to have our root URL to go to landing page. So let's go to our roots. Here they are. And we will define a root that will lead to the static public landing page. But it is not a path, it is a controller action. So we have the controller and the action in the controller. And that's why we need this sign. And now when we refresh and go to the root, we don't have the hello Rails anymore. We have the static public landing page. And we can also remove this get static public landing page. We don't need it anymore. And now we still have these two paths, static public, privacy, and terms. Now this path is not nice at all. We want it to go directly to privacy without static public. So we will say get privacy, just get privacy to static public privacy. Now let's try once again. This root doesn't exist anymore, but this one does. So our roots look more beautiful. And we'll do the same with our terms. Get terms to static public terms. Okay, looks better. Now we'll clean up. And let's have a look. We have a privacy page, a terms page, and our root path. So looks better. Let's save our changes. So git status, git add all, git commit main, static public controller with pages. Okay, git push. And we can actually also push our changes to Heroku. So here is our application with already 2 commits, and we'll also push it to Heroku. Now let's go to our Heroku dashboard. And here I've already got a few applications. Now I have another application named Super Rails. I can actually just rename it or destroy this application. I don't need it anymore. So I will remove this application. And I'm going to create a new application named Super Rails. You can name your application any way you like. So git remote v. You see we have only a git origin. We don't have a Heroku connected yet. We will type Heroku create, and it's going to create a new application, an empty application with a random name. You see we can also type Heroku update, so Heroku update, and you see we've created a new application, Mighty Savannah, whatever. If we go into our Heroku dashboard, we can also see it. So Mighty Savannah, okay, and the application is going to be empty at the moment. So if we open the application, it's empty. And now we want to push our code to this application. Now there are a few ways to do it. So, and before this, we'll first rename the application. So we will say Heroku rename super Rails. So we are renaming the current connected application to super Rails. Now, if I type git remote v, we see we have two remotes now. We have the Heroku remote and the git remote. So we've renamed the application. I will not be able to see this application here in the dashboard anymore, but I'll be able to see a new empty application at super Rails. Here it is. And actually for future needs, I will go to deploy, and here I'm going to connect a GitHub. So I'm going to connect the repository named super Rails. Okay, I'm going to connect it. And I can also actually configure automatic deploys. So I'm not having a CI service yet. I can just say enable automatic deploys. And now I'm going to deploy. I can either deploy from the Heroku dashboard, or I can type git push Heroku main. And it's going to push to Heroku. Now it's going to take a few minutes to push the application to Heroku for the first time. It always takes quite a while. Okay, so we have pushed to Heroku, and let's try to open the application and see. And you see we have our page for landing page available. Let's go to something like privacy. It's also available, and terms is also available. And now going back to Heroku, let's actually use a real domain name. So connect a real domain name. Now, if I go to Mainship, I've actually bought a domain, superrails.com, so I'm going to connect it. In the meantime, on Heroku, I'm going to the settings, and here we have these add domain paths. So I'm going to type superrails.com. And I'm also going to go back and type www.superrails.com. And you see it gave me two DNS targets. So I will need to connect these two DNS targets on my domain provider. So here I have this domain, superrails.com. I'm going to go to manage, advanced DNS, and I'm going to connect these two targets. Now, first of all, I've previously added URL redirect records so that they redirect to my YouTube, and I will not need this anymore. I will remove these. And I'm going to add a new record. It is going to be a CNAME. The host is going to be @ so just the empty domain name. And it is going to go with the empty domain name here. So here is the DNS target. I will save the changes. And here I have the second one. So I will add a new CNAME. It's going to be www. Then the value is going to be this one. And I will also accept it. And now it can take actually quite a while for these changes to work. So we can try, of course, navigating to the domain name. Let's see. Oh yeah, it already works. Now you see superrails.com works and www.superrails also works. But you see the connection is not secure because I don't have SSL configured yet. Well, if you want to use Heroku and SSL, the easiest way is to just upgrade your dyno. So use a paid dyno, and it's what I'm going to do now. So here I'm going to the overview of the application. I have my dynos. I will configure the dynos. I will change the dyno type and go from free to hobby, $7 per month. So I will save. And now going back to the application settings, I will refresh the AMC status, you see it gave this new kind of column to the AMC status, and now it says, okay, so in theory, when I upgraded my dyno on Heroku, it gave me the possibility to automatically connect the SSL via Heroku. And now if I refresh the page, I can actually navigate to HTTPS, and it must work. So you see, now I have a secure connection to www and to the bare domain. So fantastic. The domain works and anybody in the internet can access it. And it is using SSL. So this is really great. And you see it was really fast to configure. Now, what do we do next? Let's add some styling. Well, we will use Bootstrap and we will use FontAwesome. So let's install Bootstrap. Now, how do we install Bootstrap? Actually, I have in the blog a quick guide on how to do it. So we're just going to use this. So we're going to type yarn at bootstrap at pop.js core, create a directory in JavaScript style sheets, and the file application as CSS. So let's add these. Okay. And when we go to application, JavaScript in packs, we are going to add import style sheet application. So we are going to import this newly created folder style sheets and application as CSS. And we're going to import Bootstrap. And inside this style sheets application as CSS, we are going to also import the CSS for Bootstrap. And let's see if this works. So I will start the server, and the default fonts should actually change. So did it change? Oh, I'm actually running the Heroku app, so it shouldn't change. I'm going to do it in my development environment. So you see, now I'm running it, and it is compiling the newly added yarn packages of pop.js and of Bootstrap. Okay. And you see the fonts have changed. So now I'm actually using Bootstrap, and you see it was really easy and fast to install. Of course, with some help from tutorials, but you really don't have to have this all in your mind. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to read through all the documentations each time. You can make your own gists or your own kind of notes on how to do stuff faster. So this is perfectly normal. You don't really have to have everything in your head. Okay, we have installed Bootstrap. And actually one more thing to do, we will go to our views, layouts, application HTML, and also require style sheet pack tag for the style sheets. Okay, it should work as before. And actually we can also try to add some kind of background color for all of our application. So let's say body will have a background color, and let's choose a color. Now we can actually Google CSS colors. Okay, let's have a look. And let's say for the beginning it will be antique white. Okay, so the color will be antique white. Let's see if it works. So it is compiling, because whenever we do any changes inside the JavaScript folder, it recompiles, and you see the color has changed. So here's the white color, and here is antique white. Okay, and actually let's add this all into some kind of basic container. So we have the body, and let's add a class to all our body. It will have a class container. So this is a Bootstrap class, and you see it has added everything into a container. Now we can also use container fluid for there just to be a tiny margin from the side. Now let's just leave it container for now. And what else do we want to add? Let's actually add a few links. So we will add a link to the privacy and to the terms and to home. So we will add a link to privacy. It will have a privacy auth, link to terms, have a terms path, and link to the root path. So it's going to be the home path. Link to home. And see, we've got 3 links now. And I really don't like this automatic highlighting. Now, when we added Bootstrap, it also added this automatic highlighting for all the links, and I don't like it. So we're going to add a small style to remove that. We will say A, so A is kind of a link, and we will say text decoration, none, something like this. So this should remove these automatic highlights. And yeah, it removed the automatic highlights, and you see we can navigate from one page to another. So looks cool. And now we can say that we've added Bootstrap and some basic styling. So git status, git add all, git commit main, add Bootstrap. Okay, git push. So now we're pushing, and our changes should already be visible on GitHub. And they should also automatically be pushed to Heroku, because in Heroku we've added these automatic deploys. We're actually going to see if it pushes automatically. Let's go to our SuperRails application. So here in deploy, we have already activated automatic deploys. And just in a moment, we will, or in a minute, go to our application and see if it was updated on Heroku. Now we don't need this anymore, we don't need this anymore. And here actually in the about section, we can also add a link to the application in production. So it will be superrails.com. Oh, and you see by default, it navigates not to the SSL version of the website. So we'll want it to navigate to the SSL version by default. We will actually disable using the non-SSL version. How are we going to do it? We will go to our production.rb. So we will go to config, production.rb, and here we have a setting config force SSL true. So we're going to only use SSL. We will not have the option to view our website not using SSL. So we'll say git status, git add all, git commit main, false, SSL, git push. So we are pushing to GitHub, and it's going to have to use SSL. And in the meantime, you see we didn't say git push Heroku main, but it also updated our application on Heroku. So you see, we are already using Bootstrap in our production application. And this was an automatic deploy done from GitHub to Heroku. So looks nice. And in another minute, this should also force us to use SSL. So we are not going to have the option to view the website without the secure connection. Okay, so by now the application should have already been pushed to Heroku, and I will try to refresh, and you see now that connection is not secure, and I'm just refreshing, and the connection is secure. So our Rails application is forcing the usage of SSL thanks to this command that we added in the production.rb file. Okay, looks good. What are we going to do next? Let's add the FontAwesome. Again, we're going to work a bit more on the basic styling that we'll be using along our application. So how do we add FontAwesome? Again, we're going to run a yarn command. So again, on the blog post, in the blog, I'm finding the command to yarn add FontAwesome. So let's add this. And we're going to add a line in our application.js. So we're going to import FontAwesome at FontAwesome3 CSS all. Let's import this and see if we can use the commands. So I will go to the FontAwesome website and try to add a few icons. Now, in the meantime, I'm restarting the server, and I'll close the tabs that I don't need right now. Okay, let's select some kind of icon. So I'm going to the icons tab, and I will try to find a free icon with like Ruby. or a gem? Okay, we have a gem, and let's select the icon and try to add it to our application. So I'm going to copy the HTML for it and add it somewhere in one of our views. Let's go to our application, views, static public, and add it on the landing page. So here I'm going to have a FontAwesome regular icon that is a gem. Now there are FAR, FA brand icons, FI without anything. So there are a few different extensions here. And let's see if the icon is added. You see the icon is added. Now we can actually also change some of the properties of this icon. So we can say FA span, and the icon will be always spanning, possibly. It may be spin, not span. Okay, you see it is spinning, and we can change the size. So we will say FA, let's say 3x. And now you see we have an always spinning Ruby gem inside our application. Looks funny. Okay, let's save our changes. We've just added FontAwesome that we're going to use long-term in the application. Git status, git add all, git commit main, install FontAwesome, and git push. Okay, and what are we going to do next? Next, we're going to add the device. So we're going to let our users finally log into the application. So let's go to the device documentation. We're going to go to GitHub and find the device gem. Okay, hot combo device, and let's see the installation manual. So how do we install it? We'll go to getting started, and we'll add the gem device to our gem file. And also first I will close all the files that we're not using right now. So gem file, and somewhere on the bottom, I will add device. So bundle, and next we're going to type Rails generate device install. Okay, and we need to do a few settings. So in development RB, we are going to add this line. Let's go to config, development RB, and add this line. Okay, next, let's have a look. We need to go to our roots and add a root, a default root too. We already have one, and we're going to add some kind of notices and alerts. Let's add these in our layouts. So we'll go to our views, layouts, application HTML ERB, and let's say above the body, we will add these clauses for notices and alerts. And what else do we need to do? We can generate device views, but we don't need this right away now. So we can do it later. Okay, and let's try to see what's next in the installation guide. So we have Rails generate device model. So are we going to have device for admins or for users or for customers or for guests? We're going to have device for users. So we will say Rails generate device user. And you see it created a model user RB and a migration to create device users. If we have a look at the migration, what does it give us? So a user is with an email, password, and basic stuff for users to be able to log in. Okay, let's type Rails db migrate. So it is our first migration. We are going to have users now. And okay, now I'm going to type Rails db drop. Previously, I already had a Super Rails application that has a database named Super Rails development. So Rails db create and Rails db migrate. Okay, so now we have our schema where we have one table of users. Okay, and what is next in the guide? We can say before action authenticate user somewhere in our application for controllers that require user authentication. Okay, let's anyway try to add this. So we'll go to our controllers, and in our application controller, require user authentication for any action. So to do anything in our application, the user will have to be logged in. Let's see how it works. Okay, you see, now we cannot see anything and we get this alert. This is an alert that we get from here, that you need to sign in before continuing. And we get our links because they are always available in the layout. And we get this device login. Now we can sign up. So an email, a password, and sign up. And you see we can now access the pages. So what have we done? We've made it so that users can actually log in, and when they're not logged in, they don't have access to any pages inside our application. Now, actually, let's save our changes. So we've basically added Devise, git status, git add all, git commit main, install gem Devise. Okay, but now our application is like not usable at all. It's not usable because, well, we have logged in, but we have no way of seeing that we are logged in, and no way to actually log out. So we need some kind of basic device navigational links. And actually, it's possibly time to add some kind of navbar. So again, you can write different commands like user signed in, you can find the current user, and you can add some kind of links for log in, log out, to be available conditionally. But I've already added some defaults in my blog. And I've got a default navbar. So the basic navigation would say, if there is a current user, we can see the current user email, and we have a link to log out. Otherwise, we have a link to log in and to register. Let's try to add this to our application HTML, where we have our navigational links. So let's see. And you see, I have my current user's email, I have the link to log out, and a few other links. So let's try to log out. And now you see we don't have the current user's email, but we have a link to log in or to register. So looks kind of good. Let's just change the placing, and let's actually move this all into a partial. So all these navigational links are going to be in a separate partial. So let's go to our views, and inside layouts, we can add a partial that will be named like header or navbar. Let's say header.html.erb. And we will add a link to render the layouts /header. And we will move all these lines for the navigation into our header. Okay. And let's see if it works. So I'm refreshing, and again, you see we have all these links. If I remove one of the links, it is not visible now. So we've kind of cleaned up our application HTML and moved these links into the header. And actually, we can also move these links into a separate partial. So like messages, for example, layout/messages. And we will also create this partial. So partial messages.html.erb. And we will move this code into the messages partial. Just like this. So you see our application HTML is cleaned, and we have a separate partial where we're going to have our header logic, and a separate partial where we're going to have our messages logic. So we can actually, what can we do now? You see, now we have links to home, privacy, and terms, and actually they should be available for not logged in users. So let's make these links available for not logged in users. Generally, anything in our application will require authentication, but not the static public views. So we're going to go to the static public controller, and we're going to skip the before action, authenticate user. So we'll say skip before action, authenticate user. And let's see if we can view the pages without being logged in. You see, now we can view all the pages without being logged in. And what if we want to skip this before action, would indicate user only for 1 or 2 pages? Let's say we will skip it only for the landing page, only for the home path. So let's say only, and here we'll have landing page. Let's see if it works. So we can view the landing page, but if we go to privacy, we need to be signed in, and for terms also. Now we can easily add the more page, for example, privacy, that can be viewed by not logged in users. So you see, 2 pages can be viewed by not logged in users, but 1 page cannot be viewed by not logged in users. So looks kind of good. And let's actually save our changes. So what have we done? We've added partials and basic device navigation. So git add all, git commit main, device navigation, and partials. And no need for current user to view static public controller. No authentication required to view static public. Okay, looks good. Let's push our changes. And what are we going to do next? Actually, we can add a beautiful navbar, and we can add a footer. So again, in the same blog post, I've got a few examples of basic navbars using Bootstrap. Now we go to the Bootstrap documentation and go to docs and find the navbar. We have a default navbar that we can add, but it has a lot of links and stuff that is not connected to our Rails application. And we can just copy it and, for example, add it here in our header instead of everything. You see, we have this navbar, and yeah, you see, it doesn't look nice because it is inside the container. So it is inside the container. So we will want to move it out of the container. We can actually try to, for example, place it inside the head. So if we place it inside the head, yeah, I want to place the header inside the head and the messages inside the container. And it's still not full width. Why is it not full width? Because it is, now it is also in a container. Okay, let's see. What if, now we want to make the navbar full width. Let's try to place it back and remove this container class. So I will remove the class container. Okay, now it is full width. So we want the navbar to be full width, but we don't need this container. And you see, it is collapsed by default. We don't want to have it collapsed by default either. So what are we going to do? Actually, we can possibly remove the container class from the body and have it in a separate div, only for the yield. So we will say div class container and put the yield, so all the application content inside this container. And you see now the navbar is full width and looks quite fine. Oh, and actually it was collapsed because I had my screen increased. So now it is not collapsed. But again, it has a lot of links to nowhere by default, and you would have to totally override and customize this navbar. And here in the blog post, I've got the same kind of navbar that is using some basic Ruby on Rails stuff. So I will just replace it, and we have FontAwesome installed, we've got Bootstrap installed, we've got the default navigational links with for the root path and for Devise. So you see, also we have this highlighting of links. Now, what do we have? So some kind of basic FontAwesome. So here we have like a brand place, we can just replace it. And here we have the root path. So you see, it is a Ruby link, not an HTML link. And here we have some kind of basic styling. So if the current page is the root path, then we add an additional class that the link is active and the font weight is bold. And it is a nice additional trick from the Ruby on Rails part. You see, now it is not bold and now it is bold because it is the current active link. If I go to another link, it is not bold. So we highlight the current link. And then in the sidebar, we have the regular device stuff. If there is a current user, we can edit the path, edit the user's account, and we can log out. Otherwise, we can log in or sign up. Again, let's log in once again. So same links, same messages, and we have the possibility to view the current user's email and go to his account settings. So this is just like regular device stuff. And we have a link to sign out, and it is all inside the dropdown. So looks quite nice. And if we have a smaller screen, we also have this all available in the dropdown. So basically, we've got the slightly formatted default Bootstrap 5 Navbar done for a Ruby on Rails application using Bootstrap, Devise, and FontAwesome. Now let's actually also add our links for the other pages. We had our link to what? Link to privacy and terms. So let's add these two links here also. I will have a link to privacy path. And if the current page is privacy path, we're going to have it with font weight bold, and we'll name it privacy. So here we have a privacy page, and we're going to do the same with our terms. So it will be the terms path here and here, and name is going to be terms. And you see now we have 3 different pages: home, privacy, and terms. Looks nice. Now let's log out once again, and here we have the home, privacy, and terms. And terms requires login, but actually it's not going to require login in the future. So let's not require login. Let's just skip before action authenticate user for the whole controller. Okay, let's refresh once again and go to terms, and you see it works. And the icons don't look great. Now we have 3 same icons. So let's go to FontAwesome icons and select a couple of icons that will fit better. Loading, and let's say something like terms, legal. So let's say file contract is what we are going to use. Let's go to our header, and for both privacy and terms, we're going to use FA file contract. Okay. Or we can use some kind of scale. Well, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to use any icons at all here. So anyway, we've got some kind of better navbar. Looks nice. And let's actually save our changes. So git status, what have we done? We've mainly added our new Bootstrap navbar. So git add all, git commit main, Bootstrap, Devise, FontAwesome, Navbar, and looks good. And let's have actually a look at our application in production. So it pushed to production, and let's try to log in, and you see we get their story, but something went wrong because we didn't run our migrations on Heroku since we created our users model. So we'll type Heroku run Rails DB migrate. Okay, so we've run the migration, and let's go back to Heroku and see if it works. Now you see, in the meantime, we've also deployed the latest version to Heroku, where we have the navbar, and we can now log in. So let's actually create an account. I will sign up in the production application. I will select this email, password confirmation, and voila, I'm the first user to ever sign up in the production application. So looks great. And now what are we gonna do next? Let's actually add a footer that will always be on the bottom. It's also always great to have a footer that helps users in navigation and understanding more about the application. So actually previously I went through a lot of tutorials on like doing the right with CSS in Rails application, using the Rails application HTML ERB layout, and the best solution that I found, I've actually moved into my blog. So we're going to use the solution. So how to add a footer that will always be on the like very bottom. First, we are going to have 3 parts of our application. So in HTML, we have the head, the body, and under the body, we're going to have the footer. Okay. And we are going to add a few lines of CSS. So we'll go to our application as CSS and add these lines. So I'm going to go and open our JavaScript style sheets. Yeah, it's kind of funny that we have our style sheets inside JavaScript, but basically this JavaScript folder is everything that is kind of compiled through Webpacker. So I think the right way for Rails would be to actually name this folder somehow differently, and inside it will have JavaScript and style sheets, but we'll see what Rails 7 brings, and maybe there will be some changes to it. I'm quite sure that there will. So we will add these lines, and we will actually add a few comments. So footer always on the bottom. Then this will be the application background color. And this will be Bootstrap links, not highlighted, not underlined by default. Okay, and let's actually add something inside our footer. So here inside our application HTML ERB, let's add like this is a footer. And let's see if our server is running. No, it is not. So I'll type Rails server. And I will expect something to appear on the bottom, on the end of the page. So it is still compiling. And you see, so the footer is really on the very end of the page. And now let's give it some kind of basic styling. So first of all, we will render our real footer inside the partial. So we'll have a partial named footer. Okay, we will go to our layouts and add a partial named footer.html.erb. Now all the partials must have this underscore in the beginning, don't forget that. And we will add this text inside the footer partial. Okay, and now it works as before. And now let's add some basic Bootstrap styling. So we'll type div class. Now the class is going to be let's say background light, and add this all inside a div. And let's see how it looks. So you see it is in a div, and it has some kind of background. Let's actually add some kind of spacing. So it will have text center for all the text by default. And it will have some kind of breaks on the beginning and on the end, so it is a bit wider. Let's try to make a paragraph on the end. Oh no, the paragraph doesn't look very well. Well, yeah, something like this. So we have a footer, and we can actually push a few links from the header into the footer. So now our brand button brings us to the root path, and we will move the privacy and the terms into our footer. So let's do that. I will just remove these links from the header and move them into the footer. Let's see. Okay, they're moved into the footer, but don't look really nice. Well, why are they still nav links? They're not using the nav format. So we can remove this nav link part. And yeah, they're just as two links now. Not perfect. Let's actually add some kind of columns. So if we go to Bootstrap columns, what does it give us? So we would need to have a container. Inside we would have a row, and inside we would have columns. Let's do this. So we'll have a container, and inside we would have our columns. And in one column we'll have the name of the application. In another column we will have privacy, and in another we will have terms. Okay, so the first column, second, and third. Now let's also add some kind of break. Let's see if it works without a break on the bottom, but doesn't look nice. So we'll add also a break on the beginning. And looks nice. So now it is wider and we have 3 columns. And we will add the name of the application and maybe a path to the root of our application. So let's just go here and we'll also copy the root path. And we'll add the name of the application here. So it will be just superrails.com. Okay, and now we have 3 links, and whenever we navigate, the link is highlighted. So looks kind of not bad for the start. So let's actually save our changes. Now, one thing I don't like is that there is a real lot of space on the bottom. Maybe if we remove the break, yeah, there still is a little bit of space, and looks kind of fine. So let's save our changes, git status, git add all, git commit main, add a footer, and git push. Okay, we've added a footer. Now let's close all the files that we're not using right at the moment. And what are we going to do next? Well, next we will let our users log in with their social accounts. So with GitHub, with Google, with Twitter, and we're actually going to start with log in through Google. So how do we add this? Now I will close a few tabs and we'll go to find the gem, Omniauth, Google Auth tool. So it is the gem that we're going to use to log in with Google. Let's have a look at the gem. Okay, we will add this gem to our gem file and run bundle. Okay, next we're going to go to our config, initializes, and in device RB, we see somewhere in the end that we have the Omniauth option. So we'll need to configure the Omniauth providers. They're going to have config Omniauth, and it is going to be not GitHub on the beginning, but it's going to be Google OAuth 2. Okay, and now we don't need to define a scope. It's not important at the moment, and we'll need an app ID and an app secret. So let's get this from Google. We'll go to our developer console on Google. And get a couple of API keys. No idea why it's loading for so long. Okay, let's have a look at our existing projects. Maybe I already have a project named SuperRails. Yes, I actually do. So let's go to this project, and maybe I already have some kind of credentials. Okay, I already have some kind of credentials. I'm going to edit them. Why is it taking so long to load? So, okay, we have the URI for the application on Heroku. I'm also going to add the URI for the application in production, so superrails.com, then www.superrails.com, and the development environment, that is this one. Okay, and we're going to add a few callbacks. So we're going to have the same links. So the Heroku one, the two production ones, and the development one. And all of them are going to have /users auth Google auth 2 callback like this. And we save. And now we have the client ID. I'm gonna copy it. Okay, going back to edit. I'm gonna copy this client ID and add it in the credentials. So I'm going to go to editor, vim Rails credentials, edit, and we're going to actually use Rails credentials. So here I've got a master key and credentials YML. So I'm going to add the credentials for Google, and it's going to have an ID. Now, and this is going to be the ID, and it's going to have a secret, and this is going to be the secret. Okay, now I exit and save. So these three signs, the column, WQ, and enter. So the file is encrypted and saved. And now I'm going to call these credentials in the console to see if it works. Rails.application.credentials.dig will have Google and ID. Okay, I typed Google incorrectly, so Google ID. So it works, and I'm going to add these credentials in our devise.rb. So instead of app ID, I'm going to have Rails application dig Google ID, and here we're going to have dig Google secret. Okay, looks good. What do we have to do next? Let's see. Okay, I will save this. And what do we do next? So there should be a nice guide here, actually. So we're going to need to go to our roots and also define a new controller path. So Devise for users, controllers, Omniauth callbacks, users, Omniauth callbacks. So going to our roots, we will see that we add this new controller path, and we actually have to create a folder named users, and instead we will have a new controller named Omniauth callbacks controller. So going to our controllers, here we're creating a folder named users, and here we are creating a new controller named Omniauth callbacks controller.rb. And here we're going to input some kind of default stuff from this README. So we copied this, and here we have this default login path for Google. So when we get the API keys, we will find the user, and if the user is found, then we send the user in, otherwise we get an error. And what else do we need? We need to add this method from Omniauth in our user.rb. So let's do it. I will copy this and go to our models, user.rb. And we haven't done anything here yet. We will add the def cell from Omniauth. And now we're going to find the user by the email and log him in. But if we don't have this user, we're going to actually create a user. So unless user create, now a user doesn't have a name, so we don't need this by default. So we have the email and the password. Okay, and let's see if there is anything else that we should add. Actually, in user RB, we should add Omniauthable. So where is it? We don't have this in the README, it looks like. So we will add Omniauthable. Now it's strange that we don't have it in the README. So no, we don't. Okay, so we will say Omniauthable, and we will name the Omniauth providers. Really strange. So Omniauthable and Omniauth providers are going to be, for now, just Google or Auth 2. Okay, and this must be everything we need to make it work right now. So let's start our server and see if it is working. So I'm starting the server and going to log in. And you see by default, Devise gave us the option to sign in with Google because we've got it configured. And it says could not authenticate because authenticity error. We need to install an additional gem to not have this authenticity error. So what is the gem's name? Gem CSFR Omniauth token. And I don't remember how the gem is named. Yeah, it is this gem. Okay, you see it is now used by a real lot of people, 3,500 just by the information from GitHub. So we need this gem here and we run bundle and start the server once again. Okay, now we press sign in with Google Auth 2. And we are redirected here. We can select our account. And we are signed in. And here is our email. And we get this successfully authenticated from Google account. So looks kind of good. Now let's try logging in with another Google account. So I'll take another account. Let's take this one, for example. And it also works. So fantastic. We have added social login with Google. And now actually let's get some kind of user data from our Google account. So when the user logs in with Google, we'll get his avatar, we'll get his name or whatever. So first of all, let's save our changes. Git add all, git commit main, Omniauth, Google. Okay, git push. And yeah, let's get our information about the user from his social account. So we will get what kind of data will we get? Let's have a look at what kind of data we can get. We can get the name of the Omniauth provider, the unique user's ID in this provider, his name, his email, first name, image, and so on. Okay, so let's get the image, first name, last name, name. Well, let's get just the image, the name, provider, and UID. That will be enough. So we'll say Rails generate migration, add Omniauth fields to users. Okay, let's go to our DB migrations, and here we have add column to users table. That will be provider, that will be string. And we will also add UID, and we will also add the name and image. Okay, so we have the, let's see, provider, UID, name, and image. That's all we need. Okay, and let's type Rails DB migrate. In the meantime, I'm closing the stuff that we don't need anymore. And we've migrated this. And actually in this method from Omniauth, we can add some kind of additional data. So let's say each time when the user logins, we are going to get some kind of additional data. Now we have data equals access token.info. And let's see. So from the README of this Omniauth Google Auth gem, we get this code by default, and we're going to use it slightly differently. So we don't need to get this data thing. We're just going to get access token.info.email here. And here also we'll just get access token.info.email. So we don't need this data anymore. Okay. And here, each time when the user logs in, we get his latest name, his latest image. So we'll say user dot name equals access token dot, you see, access token, this is the whole access token dot info dot name. So dot info dot name, then the user dot image is going to be access token dot info dot image, and the user's provider is going to be the access token dot provider without info. It is in the first level of the JSON, and we're going to have user dot uid equals access token dot uid, and we'll also have to call user dot save so that these changes are persisted. Okay, so we find the user, or we create the user, and then we update his social login information, and then we get the user, and we log him in through the controller. So let's see if it works. Let's see if our server is running. No, it is not. I will start the server once again and sign out. And now I will log in once again. So I'm logging in with this account, and let's see if the data was saved. Let's go to the console and say Rails console user.last. Okay, user.second is this one, and you see we've saved the provider, the UID, the name, and the image. And we can actually try to open the image. Okay, we didn't manage. It didn't save the whole it didn't show the whole image in the console, the whole image link. You see, this user doesn't have a provider, a name, an image, and the user that just logged in does. So let's actually display these things inside our profile. Here we'll display the image instead of this FontAwesome icon, and the name instead of the email, if they are present. So let's go to our Navbar, views, layouts, header, and here we have the current user, and let's try to also, let's say, display the user's name and so on. Let's say equals current user dot name, and here's the name. Okay, and we can also type current user dot image, and we have the URL to the image. Now it doesn't look nice. We want to actually display the image, so we'll say image tag current user dot image, and we have the image, but it is really big, so we would want some kind of styling. So size 30x30. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. And we will say class rounded. So it is a Bootstrap class. Let's see if it works. Or we can say circle. No, it doesn't work. Let's go to get Bootstrap and docs and find rounded. Or maybe images. So here we have the rounded circles, and okay, can't find it. Let's say rounded circle. Maybe this works. Okay, yeah, it works. So we've got this rounded circle. Let's actually find this inside the GitHub. Oh, inside the Bootstrap docs. Yeah, it might be somewhere here. Okay, never mind. So we've anyway displayed the image, and now we can display the image or this FontAwesome icon. So we will say if current user dot image, then we display the image. Otherwise, we'll display this FontAwesome icon. So else, we'll have the FontAwesome icon and end. Okay. And now we just have this image. And now we have this current user email. What if we display the current user name? So also looks good. Let's actually have current user dot email or current user dot name here. So let's go to our models and create a new kind of method for this. So def user name, and we will say if name, we have name, else it will be email. Let's see if this works. So we'll try to call the current user.username. And let's see. So here we have the name of the user. And if we log in once again with another account that doesn't have a name, what will we have? We get the email. So looks kind of good. And let's actually save our changes. So let's see what we have done. Git status. So we've added the Omniauth fields to user. Git add all, git commit main, add Omniauth fields to user or to users. Okay, and git push. So it's really good to often make commits. Don't like make a commit based on the time you worked, make a commit based on the functionality that you've added, and that way it is much easier and much more correct to keep track of changes in your project. So okay, we don't need this gem Google Omniauth anymore, and now let's actually add the social login with GitHub. So let's find the gem Omniauth GitHub. Here it is. And let's add it to our application. So we will go to our gem file, add gem, and run bundle. Okay, next we need the GitHub key and GitHub secret. So we're going to go to our account and go to settings. Here we'll go to developer settings or auth apps. Now I've already created the apps, so SuperRails development and SuperRails production. Yeah, you'll need to separate apps for it to work with GitHub, and this is explained in my other videos. So here we have a client ID. I'm going to add it in the credentials, so editor vim Rails credentials edit. And now we'll add the environments. Okay, doesn't work nice. I will type set paste. And yeah, so for GitHub, we'll have separate environments for development and for production. So for development, we will have the ID that will be, let's see, here's the client ID. And the secret is going to be the one that we generate now. Okay, here I've generated the secret and I paste it. And here I will create, okay, did it work correctly? 8983, yeah. And we'll have production. And here we'll have ID. What will the ID be? Let's have a look. Going back to the production application. And here we have the client ID. And the secret. And let's generate a new client secret. So I copy it and paste it, okay? And, oh yeah, and actually I should have said that it is for GitHub. So GitHub, and yeah, we will nest this inside GitHub. And here also, so GitHub, and then as the ID and the secret inside GitHub. Okay, and now we exit with saving, and let's find these credentials. So rails.application.credentials.dig, and we'll say development. Then we'll get the GitHub, and we'll get the ID. works. Let's do the same with production. And let's do it for the current environment. We'll type rails.env.toSim. Now you see it works, because if we just type rails.env.toSim, we will get the current environment. So it is development at the moment. So for GitHub, we're going to add the paths with the current environment. Now let's go to our config, initializes devise.rb. Here are our initializers, devise.rb. And we are uncommenting this path to add the Omniauth GitHub. Okay, and here we'll have the ID. Oh my, for some reason it's working kind of slow. And we don't need the scope so much. And we'll have also the secret here after the ID instead of app secret. So comma. Now I'll close the files. We don't need them right now. And what do we have? So GitHub ID and GitHub secret. Looks fine. And we can actually see if it works. Actually, if we go to our auth application, we can see now we have the homepage URL to the Heroku app. We can actually make it to the application with our real domain name. So just superrails.com, and here also superrails.com. It is for production. And we'll set the second application for development to be using the right environment. Now I'm using this environment. So I will just change it here, and here we have /users auth GitHub callback. Okay, we save this file. And what else do we need to add? So yeah, we need to go to our user.rb. Let's go to our app models user.rb. And we've already added Google Auth 2, and we will also add GitHub. Okay, and now let's start our survey and see if this works. So I'm restarting. Yeah, it will not work. It will not work. Because we also need to go to our Omniauth callbacks controller and define a path not only for Google Auth 2, but also for GitHub. So we will create a new method. Instead of just copying this with a separate name GitHub, we will have something def handle auth. And how are we gonna do it? Yeah, so we will say handle auth kind like this, and we'll have separate method for login with GitHub and login with Google. So GitHub and Google. And when we log in with Google, we will say handle auth Google. And here we will say handle auth GitHub. Okay. And here instead of the word kind, we will say kind. And here instead of Google data, we will say auth data. Okay. So must look well. And now, no matter when we log in with Google, we go to this method Google Auth 2, and it redirects us to this handle auth method. And when we log in with GitHub, it also redirects us to this handle auth method. Okay, now it should work. Let's test the social login for both Google and GitHub now. We will start from GitHub that we have just added. So sign in with GitHub. And yeah, I'm signed in, and here is my GitHub avatar. And now I will sign out and sign in with Google once more. So signing in, taking this account. And I'm signed in. Okay, so we can save our changes. We've actually added the social login with multiple providers, with Google and with GitHub. So git status, git add all git commit main Omniauth GitHub. Omniauth GitHub. Okay, now git push. And actually, we need to do some changes on our production application. If I refresh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because we've added our master key, but it is not communicated to Heroku. So we'll have to set our master key on Heroku. There are a few ways of doing it. We can do it in settings, and in config variables, we can add a Rails master key, or we can do it in the console. We will type something like Heroku config set Rails master key to be cat config master.key, something like this, I guess. Okay, not like this. Let's try the same but without spaces, like this. And it works. So I've added my master key to Heroku, and also will run the migrations. Heroku run Rails db migrate, because we've added this additional migration to add Omniauth fields to users. Okay, Heroku. Yeah, I got this error because apparently I didn't type this command to set the master key correctly. Again, I will do it once again. Heroku config set Rails master key cat config master key. Okay, now it worked. Now it copied the real master key, and now I can type Heroku run Rails db migrate. So here's the right way to type this command to automatically copy the master key from our config folder. Here's our config folder. Here we have our master key to Heroku. Okay. And we run Heroku run Rails db migrate. And if the credentials work, it should run the migration. And it looks like it worked. So let's go back to our superrails.com website and see if it works. Now I will try to log in with another account, log in with GitHub. It worked, and I will try to now log in with Google. And it also works. Great. So, works. Well, I think it's enough for part one. I'm getting a bit tired and I need to have a drink. And later on, we are going to continue to make this full application from zero to a real working application that can bring value. So thanks for being with me, and I hope you found the video interesting. Have a nice day.